本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。I miss you. What's good, Internet? It's Tuesday, February 23rd, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 376. I'm your host, Austin Walker, and joining me today, Patrick Klepek.
That's too many numbers, honestly.
It is. Sorry.
Let's just wind it back. Let's
All
just
right,
start it back.
Wow.
Episode one. Here we go.
Yeah. By
Season 2. We hit
podcast.
376. That was the finale.
Right, that was it. We did a year, and now we're starting.
We even
over.
went on a short hiatus.
We did do a hiatus. We did. It's true. We're back now. I almost.
Who's been
changed the date.
recasted?
Gita Jackson's here, replacing me. No, I'm still here too.
Not much a recast. It's like in Buffy where they just added Dawn as a character in the explanation.
Yeah.
I'm
got that
Dawn. I'm
explanation
everyone's
eventually.
favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Shout outs to Michelle Trachtenberg and the entire cast of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sorry.
Rob Zachney also here
Good morning.
in a wonderful smoking jacket. See, I didn't say robe this time because you corrected me.
Listeners at home,
worse
you
than
do
I
not
meant it.
understand how incredible Rob. I had to tell this story, actually. I was watching Batman the Animated Series. We're watching a lot with David, and there is a character as a minor villain in the Zatanna episode that looks exactly like Rob Zachney, especially now that he has a dressing robe.
Incredible.
I believe
no! Does the guy wear a dressing gown in
Yes, he does.
the Zatanna episode?
God.
I mean, his name is Magnus Bane, so it's like, Magnus Bane is also a character from Shadowhunters, the television show and book series by the Harry Potter fanfiction author, what's her name, Cassandra Clare? Anyway, his name
Weird.
is Magnus.
Great. Fantastic name.
I'm looking for
glad.
a picture.
I'm very glad. Also joining us, of course, Ricardo Contreras. Cado is still
Hello.
on the ones and twos. How
Yeah.
you doing, Cado?
It's
Been a minute since we've done one of these
Yeah.
because we didn't do one last week, and then our Friday shows have been the reset episodes, which I think we still have 2 more weeks of, right? This week and next week, Cado?
I believe so. What week is it? It's the 26th? Yeah. 26th, and then the 5th will be the last.
The last of those resets. We'll be
Reset
back to a
panels.
regular schedule after that. So yeah, how's everyone doing? Everyone doing okay? It's been a minute since I've seen people. People living okay? No huge changes?
I fixed my back. Herniated disc, not great.
Oh,
Got
no.
that worked out.
Oh,
Are you all right now?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was minor. I don't know what happened. It's the same way when I had a hernia. Like some people have like an event they could point to, like did that shit and like screwed
Shouldn't
myself
have done
up,
that.
and
Right.
don't know how I tore both hernias. Don't know. Most likely, I was just being irresponsible with like picking up the bowling ball of a child that I have. But fortunately, it was not. I just did yoga for like a month and a half. Although side planks.
Yeah, fuck those.
Side planks.
Those are
side
Fuck that.
planks
Fuck
are
the side play.
You should just point to those. That sounds like you got your cause right there.
side planks, man. Like just like look them up. Try and do it for a minute, which is what I'm supposed to do. And the real test is going to be between seconds 45 to a minute. I know it. Every time I look at that,
yeah.
I stare at my phone and I watch and like I hit 45. I'm like, okay, here we go. This is it. This is where the burn kicks in. But
What I'm always seeking when I'm doing like yoga style workouts like that, where I have to hold a position or do an action that I really just hate doing for a long period of time, is like I need someone so annoying that I forget how much I hate what I'm doing. You need someone just to yell at you about something else irritating.
You just gotta put on the most like annoying YouTuber you can think of, and it'll
Yes.
be fine.
Yes,
You know?
put on the annoying orange.
Yeah, put on
That's
the
what
annoying
she's here
orange.
for.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the one thing I
There you
miss
go.
about like organized sports is that there really is no substitution from the social pressure of being like you have to just keep running with
Oh,
these
it'll be fine.
people.
Yeah.
You can't drop out. And
If
two,
I stop running, they're gonna be mad.
yeah. And also, like, I do kind of miss the whole, like, we're doing weight training and just hurling abuse at each other and, like, you know, lifting heroic amounts of weight. But the problem is, I'm like, I could enforce that sort of discipline for myself. Like, I could power through 3 sets of 8 if I just, like, really put my mind to it.
Rob, you
And
can't get
the
your
truth-
inbox under control. You're not. How are you going to be doing like weightlifting?
Yeah.
God.
Exactly.
Over 1,000 unread emails. I am not going to be able to manage myself at a weight bench. No.
Speaking of hurling abuses at each other, BlizzCon was this weekend.
Wow.
And there were some announcements. I feel like this is one of the weird things about not doing the show is like we also had a Nintendo Direct last week. The first one in 18 months or something ridiculous since
I don't think it was that.
Yeah,
long,
dude,
was
it was. It wasn't 18, but it was 2019.
Since the last
was the last regular ass
Right.
Nintendo Direct.
They did a few. They did like one mini and then some indie worlds or whatever. But this is the
Correct.
first one in that much amount of time that was just regular ass.
I didn't realize. It's just like
Nintendo
what is a real Mario debate? Like it's like hierarchies of fucking Nintendo Directs. Like,
Yeah, I feel like they happen
that
every
shit ain't a real Direct. Like
That's
unless
how
I
people
got
feel about
Numa
it.
snapping at me, it's not
it's
a real
40
Direct.
minutes versus, every other one is like under 30, and that's a big difference.
I have to say,
To
my
people.
favorite moment of this direct was when Aonuma came out. And he was
No.
like, you probably thought I had news about Breath of the Wild too. I don't. Bye.
I don't. So let's just real quick. We were not going to do a rundown, but like let's hit the direct and then we'll hit BlizzCon. And anything people really want to shout out, they can shout out. Anyone? Mario Golf. I'm happy there's a new Mario Golf game. I'm worried that the
Speed Golf looks fun.
Speed Golf looks fun, but the thing that I want is like the Game Boy style long RPG campaign.
Yeah, they do. I'm like, I wanted like more details
Yes.
on like, what is that mode? Like, there's a progression. There's like a single player. It's like, but I have not really played a Mario Golf since that Game Boy Color like juggernaut, and like I just want them to make.
Please
they can just remake that game. That's fine. Like, just like it's been 20 years. Like, let's just go back to that well. And you're gonna charge me $60 for Skyward Sword. I'd rather pay $60 for Mario Golf RPG from Game Boy Color.
100%. So maybe that's what it'll be. It'll be good. We'll see. Other stuff, a Project Triangle Strategy, a game that they dropped a demo of that I think a few of us played, is the latest in their 2D HD series, which is a weird name to describe that look, because that's not, I don't know how I would describe that look, but
it's just pixel art. You can just call it pixel art. It doesn't make it less good to call it pixel art.
I love the branding of it. I would. It's so much fun. Well, one, it does like imply a certain thing. Like you see that come up, and you're like, oh shit, okay, like I'm getting a certain type of game, and they're like, I would love to have been in the meetings where it's like. I mean, they sat down and like talked about this. Like they're like this was on the books. Like there was a conference call. Like there was a Zoom meeting. I don't know how they're handling it.
It just sort of sounds like the dudes from like WeWork made it up. You know, like this sounds like it comes straight out of like startup culture at Silicon Valley, which feels very out of character for Nintendo. You'd think they'd call it something baked and soaked in nostalgia, and it's 2D HD.
right.
Well,
and
it's
then the
also
game
called
name
Project Triangle Strategy. So like I don't
Right.
like it's out of the same bucket.
It'll probably change in the same, but only in the same way that Project Octopath became Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, this is just going to be Octopath Tactics. It'd be like, okay, great. We just couldn't have done that to start. No, but like it's great. It's so much more fun that it's called Project Triangle Strategy.
I keep calling it in my head
Triangle Tactics, right?
the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which is a completely different thing.
That's a different thing.
That's a very different thing.
Well, we don't know where this game goes in the end.
Yeah.
Like, it could be.
Perhaps they use the scales of conviction to decide whether or not to start that fire. I don't know.
There's a lot of fire in this demo. So I did set fire to a town in this demo.
Yeah.
So, and then I saw the other path. So Triangle Strategy is like a tactical RPG in the vein of something like Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Tactics, more so than, or Tactics Ogre rather, more so than something like Fire Emblem, I would say. Like Fire Emblem gets really big maps. It has a kind of zoomed out perspective and then like zooms in during like attacks. And this feels more like something like Final Fantasy Tactics in terms of there being elevation to worry about. It seems like there's a ton of jobs or classes associated with everything. And tonally, it feels more like Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics than Fire Emblem, which is like jokey and pop cultural in many ways, and like much more like anime in the kind of the kind of fun, loving shonen shoujo space, you know?
I mean, we don't see much of the plot in this demo, but I would argue that maybe broad strokes politically in the political sort of structure of the world that we're in, or at least the world that we see in the demo, that does remind me a lot of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
I think that there are three main kingdoms, and there are like that stuff is there totally. You're not wrong. I mean, the triangle is in the name, right? And exactly. And like the triangle is about both the fact that there are three powers, and also that like there are three philosophies of like utility, liberty, and equality that you can pursue.
They really just wanted to do liberty, fraternity, egalite, but they didn't do it. Like they could have just
utility instead. Yeah. And I think tonally, it's not. I don't want to say that it is Game of Thrones, but I want to say that they use bend the knee like too many fucking times in this demo.
So I wrote an article at Kotaku about the weird writing style and like it's of Octopath Traveler, which is a very clearly like it's a choice the way that they're writing the medieval style dialogue, but it is incredibly inaccurate to how people talked in those times. To the degree that I had to call my mom, who like knows Middle English and like will recite like Beowulf in Middle English as a party trick to explain to me exactly what was wrong with it. And it has a lot to do with like pronoun usage. People think that thee and thou are formal pronouns, but they're informal pronouns. So that's why God uses thee and thou to refer to you, and you do not use those words to refer to God. Like, there's a lot better in this, but you can see the same kind of like lazy shortcuts in the way that the dialogue is adapted into English. Where it's the bend the knee thing was really, really irritating, but it's also just like instead of saying jail, they write it GAOL.
Yeah, they do like jail. The way that it would jail.
You could just write
likewise,
jail.
They also use domain instead of domain. They use DESME, classic I care about castles shit.
If you want to go all the way.
I'm sitting here
Rob
like,
is like,
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, super affected and weak, huh? That
If you want to go all the way Crusader Kings, there's nothing stopping you, but there's actually like a lot of research and a lot of historical details you have to get right if that's what you want to do. If you want to go halfway, you have to decide how much halfway. And I feel like they don't know what tone they're trying to strike here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, I think it takes itself much more seriously than something like Fire Emblem. The basic gist of it is like, you're getting, there's two battles in this, but there's a lot of other conversational stuff throughout. Basic premise, hey, there's three kingdoms. One of them decides to roll hard on one of the other ones, despite there being an allegiance. They've cooked up some reason to justify a betrayal. They kill one of the kings. Another king kind of falls ill, and now the kind of kingdom is not sure what it wants to do because there is there's a young prince who this now invading empire wants to take off your hands, who you're defending. You're kind of a young prince of a smaller house. The other two houses aren't necessarily aligned with what they want to do. And so you're getting like political drama. And the way that the game works is, besides the battle mode, you're like bouncing around and almost seeing little monologues or short scenes. It's almost a theater-like presentation in a sense, because it's like, all right, here's a scene of this one house of the kingdom where the leader is monologuing about how he doesn't think that the kingdom stands a chance against this invading empire, and so we should just give in. All right, let's come over here, and it's a quick dialogue between the leader of the other house, who's like, we have to go down fighting, that's the honorable thing to do. Okay, now we're gonna go over here, and it's a completely different kingdom, and it's people bickering and then kind of conspiring together, and then we'll come to the main characters, and then that'll be a little bit more of an involved scene in which main plot stuff moves forward. And then that all builds to, you escape a castle, you save this prince, you go to your castle, and then you get your first big choice. And there's been like some dialogue choices in which, again, you're picking either the egalitarian answer, the liberty answer, or the utilitarian answer, and you're getting points for those along the way. And from what I've seen, you unlock new characters based on those points going up. I got a shaman who like had a scene about bringing like the rain to local drought stricken farmers. But then it builds to you're in your castle. You have this prince. The empire is coming and is like, yo, give him over. And you have a choice to either give him over or not. Or actually, what I should say is the room has the choice, and they're going to vote on it. And so you have an adventure segment where you go out into the world to learn information from like the townspeople about the town, about the situation writ large. So for instance, you learn that there was a ransom on his head alive, which gives you the feeling that like, hey, maybe we could turn him over and he won't die and we'll feel better about that. Or you can say, hey, that means that, you know, we if they want him alive, then maybe they're not going to like destroy the whole town and we're all going to fucking die because blah, blah, blah. Or you learn that there are fire traps hidden throughout the town, that the last king of this place built fire traps that will destroy the town, but could also defeat any sort of overwhelming incoming army if deployed correctly. So you take that information, you go back and you use it to persuade the people in your court, who are also in your party, to vote the way you want them to. The first time through, I persuaded people to vote to save this prince and not hand him over. And so the fight ended up being defending that town, which is when I set it on fire and killed a bunch of people. I mean, I didn't kill a bunch of... They made it seem like I was maybe killing people who are from the town. I don't think that's what I did.
There was a small scene.
There was an evacuation, right?
Yeah. They had the daughter and the mother that you meet in that one house be like, oh, everyone's moving into the castle. Right. We got to go to the castle now. So they put all the villagers inside.
It seemed ridiculous to burn people alive. You know, like that seemed like a ridiculous choice to
except
make.
for the people who were coming at us with axes and shit. Burn them alive. Go for it.
Yeah, I guess. You know.
I also got my once, you know, the little spy unit you have who can like turn invisible.
Yeah.
She was in the wrong place once.
No, but they show you a preview.
She was on the edge and she was in that cloak, and I was like, okay, is she in or is she? Let's just hit the trigger. Bop.
No.
We won. Dead. Don't worry about it. No,
I like her though. She's like the most useful thief character I played in a tactical RPG. She doesn't go down in one hit, and all of the things she does are useful and interesting. And also that stealth ability
is sick.
It just strikes me. This whole thing is the same problem though I have with Octopath Traveler, which is it's a wildly experimental and beautiful way to tell a story that just appears to be conventional and boring as shit. I don't know what they, I think it passes one of the checks for me with a story like this, which is the fuck that guy check. There's the dude in this game who is like the head of one of the three, not the big three houses, but like a lower three houses inside of one of these kingdoms, who is like not going to come help you because he's convinced there's no chance and he's going to just throw in with the big evil empire. And his monologue definitely made me go, fuck that guy. So that's like, that does pass that check. But I think you're totally right. That's like, I need it to be a little more fun in its writing, or if it's going to be in this mode where it's like political monologues, it needs to be good. It needs to be like capital G good to compete with other stuff in this fantasy space. And that's hard. This is the issue with the writing of Octopath and the writing of this game, not really going beyond being a pastiche of fantasy tropes that we already know about, is that it at the end of the demo, a character is giving a monologue about how everyone's always protecting him and how he needs to get stronger. And it's like the same exact monologue I've heard in anime and like fantasy fiction since I was a child. This can't be. It's classic to the point of being cliche at this point, totally. Where I need the emotional beat to either be portrayed in a way that is so moving that I don't care that it's a cliche, or to break or acknowledge that cliche in some way. Because at this point, it seems perfectly fine if you like this stuff. But for me, as a player that is more interested in the tactical, in the tactic style gameplay, and also the mechanics of the scales of conviction and all that shit, that shit rocks.
That stuff rocks,
It rocks hard. Not just that, but the play-esque depiction of how you I really love just being able to feel I feel the way that you always do in these tactics games is you feel like a god watching down from third person, and they really leaned into that in the way that it presents the story, which I love. It's just the story sucks. Sorry, Rob, you had something to say.
No, I just need to know more about the scales of conviction thing. Because you mentioned you have to persuade people. So,
it's
like,
good.
I am curious, like, how is this handled mechanically? And does it mitigate some of these writing issues, or does it, like, exacerbate them?
I think it mitigates it in the sense that it gives me something to hold on to. Like, I was invested in that vote, even though I don't give a fuck about the characters, because I had a position on the vote, if that makes sense.
I feel the same way in that once I was given something to do with the characters, like once I was given something to do with these broad archetypes that was more than just push them around or listen to them talk, I was suddenly invested in them. You know, I wanted to convince people to change their minds. And what I think the game does that's very clever is that it doesn't tell you what points you're getting when you choose options, and it doesn't tell you whether or not you've persuaded a character until after the vote is completed.
Yeah.
Like, it will say—
It'll move them into undecided, basically.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like, you have like a list that's like, all right, they're voting for it, they're voting against it, undecided. And you can move someone from voting against it to voting or into undecided, but it doesn't tell you until it's fucking time to go.
Yeah.
This reminds me of something that The Sims has been doing recently. So The Sims whole approach, I did an interview with one of the producers for Snowy Escape, which is their Japanese and winter extreme sports expansion.
Yeah, it was going to be the Olympics expansion, and then
well, they built like a really cute Japanese town that is so much like the town in Terrace House from the season everyone loves, where those two beautiful people fell in love, that it just feels like a little bit like, yes, it was going to be Olympics, but also a lot of people on the staff are probably watching Terrace House. But in
that's
that
research, baby. Build those hours. If you're working on The Sims and watching Terrace House, that's
seriously, your employer owes you for that. That was research. This is how, if you're a freelancer, also anytime you have a meal and you talk about a business, a topic of any kind, you can put that meal on your taxes. They will not check. Anyway,
also, it is work. That is work.
That is work. Yes, that is work. Talking about work is work. Making networking, that's work. Anyway, welcome to Gita and Austin's business advice podcast. But
going through it right now, trust.
In The Sims, in Snowy Escape, they added this new thing called lifestyles, and you can unlock and obtain a lifestyle through having your sim do certain actions over and over and over. But unlike other things in The Sims where they give you as much information as possible so that players can play, quote unquote, exactly how they like, lifestyles, they don't tell you what triggers them. And they don't tell you until you've unlocked them what benefits you might get from having them. You unlock them just by having your sim live their life. And it makes the game really, really interesting and dynamic to have that information withheld from you.
Yeah, hidden information is super powerful, it turns out.
Yes, it turns out. And I feel like the greatest strength of this, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, is that they are keeping information from you. And that always makes interacting with the game as a player way more interesting.
I am curious, did either of you, when you went through these votes about course of action, were either of you ever surprised that, like, okay.
I felt like I felt like I had enough to get the win, but I actually managed to pull everybody my side, which from reading around is not the case generally.
Does that change the outcome? Like, does winning, like...
No, you just have to win you have to win the vote, and if it's split, because there's 8 people, you get the deciding vote because it's your fucking castle. So that is how that works. But no one, like, at this point, no one left me. As far as I know, if someone voted against it and then they still, went the other way, they wouldn't have left your party over it. You know what I mean? It's like a decision for the whole group.
Do you, when you're sort of both polling and persuading as you're going around to these different party members, are you making commitments? Do you have to, like, make promises? Are you playing a conversation game where I'm going to say the right thing to...
I'm very curious to see this mapped out, because I kept seeing people say that they couldn't get Hannah, the spy, to commit. And I thought I didn't get her either because I didn't have information for her. When I went around the town and tried to find all the information from talking to people and stuff, and I came back to her thing was still, like, locked. And I didn't know it would be locked until I was in the conversation with her. There's basically, like, 3 options. And sometimes that third option is locked because you don't have the information for it. And so I was like, I have to pick between these other 2 options. I'm just going to make the best case I can to try to speak to her philosophically. And I don't remember even what I picked at the time, but I expected her not to come over, but she did. And that made me wonder if Are there contingencies around, hey, you've convinced this person and that has a knock-on effect because it can convince someone else?
Right.
You know, you can't convince person one, but if you can convince person two, and they could start doing things like that. What I will say is the choice is very big in terms of what happens next, Rob. So while you're not making promises to the characters in the room, you are dramatically shifting what you did after that. But Cado, go ahead.
I was just going to say, they do mention that whenever you make decisions and the scales pop up, that those things go into like background, like into background points. So there are some decisions earlier in the campaign that I think will affect whether or not you can push characters fully in that final thing. That from what I understand, it's like, it was like there's like secret stats, and whenever you make a decision, even if it's not one of these specific decisions in like earlier dialogue, it puts points into, I guess it's one of those three,
and so maybe doing that is what opened the door for Hannah to be pushed at this point. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So which is all really interesting, because so many times those sort of like in between like cutscene dialogue sort of like decisions are like, this is just for you to express a small moment, but it doesn't actually change anything in like a large RPG like this, where like this feels like, oh, this is gonna like possibly affect many things as they kind of snowball down the road. Like, yeah.
If they can take a wildly conventional fantasy story and just make it as complicated as possible interpersonally, then I will be on board. Like, that's what I want. Yeah, that's what I'm desperately asking for.
So the thing of like, okay, we're going to protect him as you defend that town. But if you hand him over, it's effectively like becoming a puppet state of that empire. Wow. And the next mission, instead of being about, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, they're just going to cook up. The next mission is going to be the same mission. Maybe it's going to be on the same map. Maybe I'm fighting a different enemy.
That's what always happens.
Right. That's what always happens.
You had a choice, but not really.
But not really. Yeah. No, dude. So the next choice instead, the thing that happens is, again, you're in a kingdom that has three main houses that report up to the king. There's one house that's kind of deeply loyal forever, and that's kind of the big farming center of the kingdom. And there's one that's like, the guy is just a scumbag who instantly smells blood on the air, and he's like, "Yes, Emperor, sir, I'm your man."
Yeah, and then there's the desert people who are very shady, and have brown skin.
Yeah, of course. One of them joined me. No, somebody else joined. Another like bureaucrat type joined me. But the inside of this house, inside of this kingdom with these three houses, the really loyal one is set up in the Protect the Prince story to be like coming to help you afterwards. Like, so impressed by your victory, he's going to ride across the kingdom and bring his forces to meet up with you. You've won his loyalty by proving that you're a true son of this kingdom. Not so if you hand the prince over. Instead, you were ordered by the emperor to go march on his lands.
No,
and you're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. He's good. We're bros. Like, hopefully he understands that we handed over the prince so that we could protect our people. He has people. He understands this. We'll call him meet. And you call a meeting with him, and we get different monologues from the entire world. Every one of those little theater scenes, or each one of those like little one-off things, is completely different than choosing to protect the prince, because they're reacting differently. Like, right. It's every part of it is a distinct thing. There's no reuse outside of settings, right? Outside of like, this is this stage set, right? And then you get there to do the meeting, and you're walking around his town beforehand the same way that you did in your own town to kind of reconnoiter it and be like, okay, well, there's these fire traps. In this place, it's like a 6-tiered or like 4-tiered like farm setup with basically ski lifts that take you up from the bottom path to like the third tier, and it's all covered in dry wheat because it's the middle of the summer, or maybe it's a drought, so it's all just like, stuff that's ready to be set ablaze. And after this, you're like, all right, time for this meeting. And we cut to him in his like throne room, basically, and someone's like, sire, bad news, the Empire is here from the north. And he immediately is like, oh, this is a betrayal. They're here as a pincer attack. The people who came here to supposedly meet me are actually not here to meet me at all. We're going to ride out to the field and meet them, send our reserves to go try to halt the Empire. And you fight, and he like will not listen to reason, obviously. And you fight him to the death in his fields. And they all get caught on fire. He has flaming archers who shoot flaming arrows. Everything sets on fire. It reminds me a little bit of the Dort City trade post level of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is like a nightmare early level where you have to deal with elevation and archers for the first time. That is just hell. And again, I only watched someone play through this. I did not have to suffer through it myself, but it seems much harder than the level that I played with, like, very defensive traps that just aced people. And you fight them and you kill them, and like that's it. Like, you are, again, from that perspective, it's like you want revenge on the emperor for killing the king that you were loyal to, but maybe you'll get it down the road by being inside of the empire and trying to like get close enough to get that revenge. Whereas the other story is very much, I'm building, a huge, pushback army. Yep, exactly. Yeah. And like, how much can they, I don't know. This is a demo, right? This is clearly what they want to build, but that's a big divergence. And I'm curious if that's to be expected.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the past,
walk that back,
what we've seen with games like Mass Effect that have said like, your choices determine the action. We found that to be limited by not just technology, but the structure of stories themselves.
Yes.
Where, if you kill the council in one game, well, I guess there's just a different council in the next one because we need to have an antagonist here.
The council has to exist. Yeah, exactly.
Or I guess the thing I could imagine is like Fire Emblem Three Houses has a ton because it has linear stories, but it has 3 of them.
It has 80 hours of them in each thing, right?
Right. You have one choice you make, and then you're kind of off on this trajectory. I suppose you could, if you change the structure, you could say, well, there's the same amount of content, but it just branches in all these weird ways. But it becomes like you want to see the map, right? Like, what does your causality map look like?
Yeah.
But this sounds so good.
I would love for you to play this demo just to see some of the tactics. We haven't even talked about, like, I think the tactics are pretty good.
The tactics is really good.
There's like good backstabbing and like attack of opportunity and follow-up attack stuff depending on unit placement.
I'm looking at a screenshot. Is it timeline tactics manipulation? Or turn order?
You do get abilities to move people around the turn order using rare resources, rare, ability. Mm-hmm. You get like
magic
2 whatever
or
magic
items.
things.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's a move priority system. It's not all of us go, then I'll...
Yeah, it's not I go, you go, or whatever.
What I find really satisfying and really interesting about this is that it does seem set up in a way that you are being urged into creating like chain reactions of attacks and counterattacks.
Yes.
Where the AI will often try to surround your player character so that if you get backstab on one side, then the other character will do another attack, a joint attack on the other side. So you essentially get hit twice. There does seem to be a system, like a standard rock, paper, scissors system of like weapons efficiency and stuff like that. But it seems to matter.
Your falcon person shouldn't get hit by a bow, for instance, right?
Yeah. It seems to be less interested in forcing the character to think about that in the way that Fire Emblem does, where the weapons triangle really rules every choice you make, and more interested in seeing how different effects work with each other. For example, when I got the shaman, it recommended to me that I try using the Rite of Rain to make it rain on the field and then use lightning after that. In this fight where you have these fire traps, it tells you, hey, use this character's freeze ability to freeze these archers to the rooftops of these buildings and then set them on fire so they can't move. I never got that to pull off quite right, but doing rain and then lightning really rocks.
I use that wall to like make people move in single file past the one open space. Yeah. And that worked for me. Cado, is that what you did?
I actually I held them off because they try to climb those stairs, and those stairs are exactly 3 spaces wide, and you can just put the wall at the top of the stairs, and they bunch up in a group. And then that made them, once I let the wall down, they all rushed together as a group already into the fucking fire zone, and boom, it was fucking beautiful. That's the big thing I wanted to mention too, is that it seems interested, at least tangentially at this point, in allowing you to manipulate the like space in certain ways. Like you have this ice wall that you can bring up, and like when there's flammable things, you can like set fire to them. The rain plus lightning thing is that you can make pools of water that will like, I think it adds more damage to lightning damage or something like that. Like there's these all these interactions that happen with mostly the magic characters that are also very interesting, adding a layer on top of the just like also like you want to flank all the time and all that sort of
Even
stuff.
then, I found myself for the non-magical characters using their special abilities way more often than I do in games like Fire Emblem, for example, which is the one that I feel like this is, for me, it feels closely related to because I played so much Fire Emblem. Where the character Huette, which is a ridiculous name, when Huette was sitting on top of a building on her bird, I would often use, instead of just bow, I would use blind bow or shadow string bow, which blind bow give characters blindness so that their accuracy goes down. Shadow string was like very, very useful because you can just stop a character dead in their tracks. They don't move when you hit them with that. And so I was able to use characters' tactical abilities really to funnel them into these situations where I could just mow them down with a couple of characters. And the AI is smart enough that they do that to you too, which is interesting for a game like this.
It also has, I just sort of shout out the way the like abilities we're talking about. They're not pulling from like a mana pool. I guess they are very broadly. Every turn, and Octopath had something similar to this. I want to say Bravely Default maybe even has something similar to this.
It seems inspired by it.
Every turn you get a token basically for your given character, and you trade those tokens in to do their special tactics. And some of those tactics only cost 1 token, which means you could do those every turn. Some of them cost 2 or 3, and so you end up saving, to be like, all right, to do the ice wall is only 1, but that doesn't hurt anybody. That's just an effect on the world. To like blast like a cross-sized part of the map with ice and hurt people, that costs 2, so I have to like wait a turn. But because of that, I like used all of the characters who buff people. There's like a strategist who can give damage buffs or who can give like armor basically to people, and those are fairly cheap. And so I was like regularly using a buff character in a tactics game, which a lot of tactics games, again, I think about something like Fire Emblem Three Houses, just don't need that. I just get that person off the map. I'm just going to crush this map anyway. This is just a matter of time. Whereas here I was like, all right, let me this person is in kind of a dangerous spot. Let me put a little shield on them. And hopefully that'll keep them safe for the next turn. And like, that is not the way I normally think about. Most tactics games don't bring that out, Right.
I absolutely fell into the whole like using the shield bearer and his provoke, putting bulwark on him to buff him up defense wise, and letting like a whole turn of the enemies go, and it's like he's just taking those hits while everyone else is fucking blasting, pinging from other sides. Right. Like you get this little cross formation where your other people are on the outside of the people surrounding him, and so he's attacking back at all the other angles. It's so good. Like this
doing provoke and then getting the thief to backstab, so it's just like and when the thief backstab, she can do 2 actions in a turn. Also, a lot of these characters have passive abilities that make them extra special for some reason. And the thief can do, if you have her go into stealth, she can do another action afterward. So she can go into stealth, stab you in the back, and the character won't know who it is unless they're directly facing her.
It's wonderful.
And then you can just it is like a Rube Goldberg machine. Like that's what it's trying to get you to do with the magic abilities and the counterattacks and all of these things. And it's really, really satisfying. I loved doing, on top of doing bulwark and giving this character an extra shield, the shield guy, I would also do fire shield so that he would have a fire counterattack to physical attacks.
Love it. Love to burn people, which like infantry soldiers are weak to. So like that stuff is all there, and I was just on Axe of the Blood God a couple of weeks ago, I guess like last week, and while on it, I was like, damn, I really just wish they would put Final Fantasy Tactics on contemporary consoles and PC. I would love to play that or something quite like it again, and to have this be announced right after. I know there's lots of other tactics games, to be clear. Like I've done my shopping, I've done my look around, try things out, etc. But nothing scratched that itch in that way in quite some time. And so to see this come out and like scratch that itch in the demo is good. But again, Octopath came in short. Like Octopath was fun for a few hours for me, and that was mostly on the back of like when I'm playing a JRPG, I do want the story to go somewhere, and that didn't do that. And so hopefully, I think that my standards are a little bit lower with a tactical RPG because most of the time is doing the tactics. And so we'll see. But anyway, I think that we went longer on that than we thought we would, which is telling.
Yeah.
Any other Nintendo Direct stuff to shout out? Here's one. I did not when they said that the Star Wars license was going to be broadened out from just EA. It was not a Zynga based multiplayer game. Was not the thing I was anticipating most.
But it was what you were dreaming of.
Yeah. Star Wars Hunters. We have nothing about it. It seems like it's a multiplayer. Maybe a battle royale, maybe a MOBA. Who the fuck knows?
The good stuff is coming, Austin. Be patient.
I know.
You do know. We do know.
I do know. You're right. I do know. But yeah.
Seeing that Zynga logo really just made me
Right?
feel like I was back in 2008 for 1 second. It was really like a time machine is what it felt like.
Totally. Anyone else have anything they want to shout out from that event?
I mean, the Zelda stuff is fascinating, and like I think we'll never quite know the full impact of things like COVID. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to know, is the incredible success of the Switch, especially as a result of COVID, has that like changed Nintendo's like thinking of their timeline horizon of like where the Switch as a platform goes? Are they just sitting on a Switch Pro? They're like, yeah, like no reason to make this shit right now. Like, why would we do this when the Switch gets cheaper to make every day and people just keep buying it? But it looks like 2021 is like, there aren't going to be that many Nintendo games. Like I will play these re-released Zelda games. The rumor is that they're going to re-release, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker as well. I never played Twilight Princess outside of like the first couple hours and bounced off it. And I've always wanted to. It's like I'd be happy to play that. But it is like Splatoon 3, hooray! But like 2022, and that's generous, right? Maybe that game is 2023 at the end of the day. Just like Nintendo as a company is like in an interesting spot. They didn't release much last year, and what they released last year was like a rushed Mario port and a game, Animal Crossing, which was more or less finished by the time COVID hit.
Right.
And then like it's like 2 years of not a whole lot going on, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I just grabbed a whole bunch of indie games on my Switch that I hadn't played for a while because I had some disposable income for a second, and then I decided to immediately get rid of it. And it was really remarkable. Like, yet again, we're back in this situation where I love my Switch, but I'm not playing it right now because it's my job to write about video games for a living, and a lot of the games that come out on that console are just not the thing that I am driven to do the most in my work. Like, I love finally checking out Cadence of Hyrule. That game whips so hard, but it's like, it's sort of like, why do I have this object in my house? Like, it's basically a Ring Fit machine for my boyfriend, for David.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm the thing that caught me off guard by the Zelda thing, the Skyward Sword thing, is like, I definitely expected them to say here, maybe they will in their future, Skyward Sword Direct or mini Direct or whatever, but say the sort of things that came out about Wind Waker around like, hey, there are going to be things that streamline this game to some degree to make the third act
I played
blah,
that
blah, blah.
game. There is not just like a speed up the Triforce collection sequence. Like,
There is
Skyward
a
Sword require
turn fee off. That's what they need to do.
Tell me what this means. I don't know what this means. Who's
Fucking Fee?
I know who Fee is.
The sword. Yeah. Look,
your sidekick.
That was my big problem with that made it feel the most repetitive, was that every time you restarted Skyward Sword, like you saved, turn off the console, turn it back on.
Yeah.
Every time you picked up an item or did anything, it thinks it's the first time you've done it in that game.
Oh my God.
Every single time you save and turn off that game. Like that is what actually drove me crazy about that game, was that it kept happening even once I was out of the tutorial area, which was also a little bit long.
Finally, someone designs a game for my habits. Hey, you probably don't remember.
Look, it would be a good option.
Do you?
Look, I'm not saying it would be a good option. It would be a great to have as an option, but it was just like the default, and it is not what I needed when I was trying to blow through that game back when it came out. I personally enjoyed everything else about the game except for the second round of repetitiveness of some of the areas. But I feel like if that one specific quirk hadn't been in it, I would have finished that game instead of leaving it at 75% done.
Mm-hmm.
That's too bad. 'Cause like the best dungeon in the game is like the last, like the Triforce dungeon or whatever. I forget. It's been a minute. Is like I remember. Like a third of that game was like it could have just been deleted and it would have been fine. Which I don't expect them to do here. Which is like I don't think that's not Nintendo's
You
style.
don't think that they're just gonna be like, yeah, fuck a third of this game, just fuck it. Yeah.
Well, it could really use like a director's cut, which is just like, hey, like we just kind of, and that's just not what they're going to do. That's not, that would be a full on remake and not what this is. And it's also just not Nintendo's style. Like they're still trotting out Mario 64 and just reminding people that, oh shit, like you don't really want to play this game anymore, as important as it was in the canon. But yeah, I'm curious to see like how people.
Do you think the sword stuff works with the analog stick? Do you think that?
I don't know. I don't know. They had any other choice. Like like the way they designed the enemies in that game, you couldn't just like just slap it on the A button. Like you couldn't just like attack. Like that game was designed explicitly around directional combat. So my guess is as much as it's like nice that they added the analog stick bits, that like most people are probably going to want to. I mean, I'll be curious to see how it feels, but like it may be the case that you still want to like disconnect those Joy-Cons and like use the motion controls. That the motion tech in like the Switch, while like deeply underutilized, is like way more accurate than the Wii or the Motion Plus. Because like Skyward Sword was, I think, like how they helped sell the Motion Plus. It was that and
Wii Sports Resort.
Wii Sports Resort. So that stuff's come a long way. They just don't really use it anymore. But my guess is that'll make that like the sword combat feel a lot better, because there were times where you just be doing it and you just like could not quite get the thing that you needed to do because the way it captured the motion wasn't quite there. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a maligned game, but I'm curious to see how it is revisited for $60. So I'm curious to see how they, at least Mario, they bundled those together. I'm guessing,
dude.
I'm guessing Wind Waker and Twilight Princess will actually. Am I guessing that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess will be a timed bundle where you'll only get to buy it for a period of time, and Skyward Sword will just stick around forever. Like that. Hey, this game you can pay $60 for as long as you want, but you want to pay $60 for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, like you have until September, 30th or whatever the next.
Before you think better of it.
Sure. Yeah, it's absurd that there isn't they should put Ocarina in that also. They should put Majora's Mask in that also. They should, you know what I mean? Like at that point, if they're going to do like a 3D Zelda bundle, they should just put everything in there.
Well, they did one of those, like the GameCube, they did like a really cool collection of games, of Zelda games at one point.
Oh, I didn't know this.
That was a really good like collection back in the day. I forget all the games in there, but Nintendo doesn't really do.
It was Majora's Ocarina and the it had Master Quest version of Ocarina in there too. I think.
Yes.
All right. I don't think there's anything else for me in that direct. But if anyone else, Splatoon 3, that news is out there. This is last week's news. We're not going to report on it unless we don't have things. I'm excited for Monster Hunter. It is what it is.
I mean, the small things in Splatoon, like, the Nintendo's not on the cutting edge of like talking about their politics, but like the way that game has quietly like erased gender as a concept, that's neat. Like, it's cool that they're doing shit like that in Splatoon. Sure.
It seems like very, 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 very concerned about the ecological crisis that we're currently experiencing also. Yeah. The game is like paranoid. It's correctly paranoid, but you can tell it's a very paranoid game about the future of the entire Earth.
You're just saying that because the world in that game has been reduced to a withering, blasted landscape where the Eiffel Tower has been implanted into the ground upside down.
And we're just not talking about it. It's just there, but we're just not talking about it.
Oh, and also all culture has returned into blood sport where we are literally training children to go to war for energy because there are no resources that actually have enough energy to power everyone at all times. Oh, and
music fucking slaps though, don't it?
Yeah.
It does.
Turns out.
We got some good art in there.
I'm gonna look fly as shit while I die. Shit.
That's our podcast about the Iraq War.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some additional stuff, including I guess we'll touch on BlizzCon, but we also been playing stuff. So, BRB. All right, we are back. I guess again, events, BlizzCon line, which is a bad name, happened. That thing happened where Metallica got muted, which is sweet irony given their history with DMCA and
How
all
was
that.
God, how does that
Blizzard's
happen?
PowerPoint presentation?
I don't give a fuck. I don't know. I'm not a Blizzard person. Like, I know that this is like deeply not petty, but it's like ungenerous. Like, I should be more open-hearted to the world of Blizzard. It's just never been my thing. I like played Diablo 2 with friends as a kid, and like, yeah, Diablo 2 remaster is coming, but like, I've just never clicked in that way with their games. I played Overwatch when it came out with my friends, but that was like, I wanted to spend time with my friends. And so when I look at like, oh, here's some like Overwatch redesigns, I'm like, no, they're not. That's not what a redesign is. That's a game about buying skins for your characters that more vastly redesign them weekly. Like, I have seen so many diva skins where like she just turns into a different character.
Yep.
You're gonna tell me that this McCree who has on Kevlar is a redesign? Shut the fuck up. That's not a redesign. It's not. He has on the armor from fucking, like, he has on Metal Gear Rising armor. That's not a redesign. That's McCree. You can like, there's like fake side boob on Widowmaker now. Guess what, homie? There been fake side boob on Widowmaker from the jump. This is the same character. That's fine. Yeah. I'm curious about Overwatch 2. It's going to be, there's all this PvE focus.
Oh, you're
I want to see that
curious about Sojourn?
Did she show up? She didn't show up at this event, right?
She was like, I read the Riley's preview at Kotaku, his write-up, because I was like, I'm not watching this shit. I don't give a fuck about this. I've been playing Overwatch for 2 hours a day every weekday for like 2 weeks because I've been hella depressed and really wanted to spend time with my good friend Nico Deo, who's a freelance for Waypoint a couple of times. And she's a delight. I got very good at Diva very quickly. And also, I found out that this game is like the most toxic game you could possibly play.
Jesus.
But like,
it's still like that?
It's really, really bad. Like, at least once per game, we will have someone just go take things from 0 to incredibly hostile for no reason. We've had spawn camping in gameplay. It's not just like the toxic as fuck chat. Because like, one incredible thing about Overwatch is that they have a global chat that you just can't leave or mute at all. And so people are constantly just accidentally typing heinous shit into that, and you just have to read it. It just shows up on your screen. And then you're also by default added into group chat, team chat and match chat, which are always the most toxic places. But if you could just like turn that shit off and like have that be fine, you can turn that off and that would be fine. Okay, except it's also the way in that the players play is incredibly toxic and like incredibly mean and mean-spirited and personal. People, I know that like you have to go after tanks in these games in order to create space and like remove an element so that you can use that to create opportunities for your team to come through. But like, this is at the point where like you kill players and like they make it their mission for the rest of the game to get their entire team to use all of their ults on you. Right. As like a baby diva, I've had full grown, like I've had Genji use his entire ult just on me out of the mech because he was pissed off at something I did. Like it encourages this behavior. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's like very fun to play with friends as sort of a team-based tactical game, but you have to like make an effort. Like you will have an experience where a player will just try to make you feel like shit for no reason. And you're like, I'm hanging out with friends. I was playing in a game that was ranked way higher, way above my ability. And like somebody on our team got really angry at me for sucking really hard. And like, I was apologetic. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm new. I'm trying. But they like got very angry at me and told me to go play Fall Guys. I was just like,
damn.
It's just like that's not like the worst, but it's like, why are you fucking like this? Like, I'm just vibing.
What are you getting out of this? Yeah.
Like, why is this?
How much of this is driven by the fact that like there's so many multiplayer games now that are team based, but also like because they have different roles. Mm-hmm. It's not just like. Okay, so like Counter-Strike is pretty rote, and there's no character classes really. It's just you choose your weapon, you kind of have your role. Mm-hmm. But a lot of multiplayer games now sort of depend on this literacy of like what your character's kit can do. Mm-hmm. And what your correct role is based on your team composition and the way the map works. Rainbow Six is a game that is really cool, but intimidates the hell out of me in the same way because there's a billion characters now, and there's really complicated mechanical interactions. But it seems, on the one hand, the things that make the game really interesting also seem like they are very tailor-made to slowly drive people just irretrievably toxic whenever they are confronting people playing a character in the way that they don't conceive of the role as operating, right? Like where it's like, you are on my team, I expect you to do this because that is the meta right now. This is what characters who play this game are doing with these team comps. And if you don't do that, that must be because you're being an asshole or you don't belong here at all.
Well, it's interesting to me because, like Cado, I also play Destiny 2. And I also play Apex Legends. These are both games that are competitive and have character-based classes. In Apex Legends, people are genuinely excited when they have a low-ranked new player on their team because they want to carry you to a dub.
Right.
They want to do that. Yes. They want to do that. They are really excited for you. They whenever you show up on a team, it's because you can be useful in Apex without being good at shooting. You can be very useful. As you can spot enemies from far away, you can ping them. If you can spot, if you have good situational awareness, if you can spot, oh, there's definitely someone hiding over there, or I'm getting shot at from over here, your teammates will be very grateful for you, even if you can't shoot for shit. And if you can just reasonably use your abilities, know that if you want to, that when Lifeline revives people, she has a shield so she can't get shot at, stuff like that, then you will be everyone's favorite player on that team because not only did they get to teach you how to play a little bit better, they got you to experience winning, which is a very rare thing in that game because it's a battle royale. And in Destiny, Destiny is very deliberately constructed its community so that new players will find places where they are welcome. Overwatch just doesn't have, I feel like part of that is, Respawn wanted Apex to be a very welcoming game. If you look at the cast of characters, it's not just that they have, one black character, one representative of every region like Overwatch does. They have multiple characters of many different ethnicities with very specific and particular backstories, and ones that actually show up in the game and in interesting and meaningful ways. And in Destiny, Bungie had an issue with its player base being toxic, and they put a lot of work into making that be different. And the players themselves didn't want that to represent their community. Cado can probably speak to that a little bit more than I can because I came in very, very late, but that's just what it seems like from the outside. Overwatch, it just seems like Blizzard doesn't give a fuck. It really just does seem like Blizzard doesn't give a fuck. This is the fact that there is a global chat that you can't leave. Blizzard doesn't give a fuck about that. They don't give a fuck. I've had the banning system. You can report players, but they get chat banned for a week and then just come back and are toxic again. There's no real penalty for being toxic. And Blizzard itself does not seem to want to put the work in to make sure that their community is at all welcoming to newcomers. Even just in gameplay, the first couple games of Overwatch you play will be spent trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. That game is confusing as hell and not newcomer friendly whatsoever. I had 4 people in my ear just explaining what even to look at during games, and it took me a full week to figure it out. Right.
God. Well, that's BlizzCon, baby.
Diablo 2 Remastered.
Yeah, totally. I liked that game. I played that game when I was a kid. So
the Necromancer summoning animation looked cool. I was
Still
that
looks
looks
good.
redone in a cool way.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
I like the way they're doing it too, where you can. It's it's built on the same code. They were no, we're not changing anything. You can just flick a switch and play the game in its original aesthetic, and you can just flip. It's just neat when games I
that's
like
the
that.
dream for remaster or remakes for me.
Yeah, I think they're because that game's bones are good enough that you don't need to do a whole lot. You can do it in UI and presentation without changing the fundamentals. Some games I think benefit from a little more on top, but it's cool that you'll be able to just appreciate both ends of that.
Totally. Yeah, I'm down. Well, I'll fuck around with that for sure. There's no date. Is there a date on that?
And I just later this year.
Yeah.
So this year, and there'll be some alpha test sometime soon. I didn't check it out yet, but they put out some like retro collection at the same time. And there was one feature that was really neat, which I guess the collection was done by Digital Eclipse, who like regularly does really excellent work with these like retro collections. And one of them, I don't know, maybe this has been things I didn't notice it because I don't tend to play a lot of these, but there's a mode where you can just watch the AI play the game, like Blackthorn or something like that, and then just press a button and like assume control. So it's just like, hey, I just kind of want to like have an attract mode going, and then like, actually, you know what? Like, I want to like fight this boss, like give it a whirl, and like you can just jump in and start playing. That's neat. I like attract modes. I wish games had more attract modes. I've like in theory loved the idea of just like having a game playing in the house, like going.
I want an Assassin's
not a
Creed
YouTube video.
1 attract mode, because that game is really pretty and it would be fun to watch Altair stalk through the streets and just kill people. I guess what I could do is just turn on a let's play, like a long play, like that's our attract modes now.
Yeah.
Patrick.
They are, yeah,
You know?
yeah. I mean, I get it.
You got a projector.
Yeah,
you should just be projecting games on the wall at all times.
that's downstairs. We don't go downstairs in the winter. That's that room is cold. I want nothing to do with that at 2 degrees.
I will say, yeah, I'm glad that arcade collection, quote unquote, exists. Even though for me, like those are all console games, right? Those are all like SNES and Genesis games, right?
Yeah,
Rock and Roll Racing and Blackthorn and Lost Vikings. I guess Lost Vikings was a PC game also, right?
I think it was originally a PC game, and then I guess I didn't realize that like Blizzard didn't design Lost Vikings 2, but they did the port of the SNES version because they had like, console divisions back then. They're strange. The origins of Blizzard are strange relative to what they do now. I played a lot of Rock and Roll Racing.
That game's cool. You know what? I found the Blizzard that I knew and loved was console Blizzard. That's it's weird, but that's how it works sometimes. Anyway, events out of the way, we can talk about other shit that we have been getting into.
Yeah, Gamergate, Iraq War, the topical things. No.
That's right.
Nope. Just gonna. No, I reject it.
You reject it? No, you're sure?
Reject it.
Okay. God, I feel like Patrick, we this is the first time that we've had you on since you can say final thoughts about the Super Mario. What is the name?
3D World, Bowser's Fury.
Yeah, 3D World End of Bout plus Bowser's Fury. This is we haven't had a podcast since the review came out, right?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure people could pick up on it. Yeah, I don't know if it's a template for the future of Mario, but or just an experimental one-off. Like both scenarios are really neat to me. Like the idea that Nintendo would just kind of put out something it feels like they were just screwing around with and then just added it on, or if this is the big idea for the next proper Mario game. Either way, I think 3D World is a direct sequel essentially to the 3D Land and 3D World are Nintendo reimagining like a Super Mario Brothers, the original, which is like, hey, you go from the start to a finish of a course and that's what you do. It's not a bunch of objectives along the way or a big space. It's like you go to get to this flagpole and get to the end. And I think 3D Land and 3D World both like properly like kind of reimagine that in a really fun sense. I get why people chafe against it because that's pretty against like the more open like world areas that have defined Mario like post Mario 64. And I think Bowser's Fury finds like a really fun balance between all those things. So yeah, I really recommend people check it out. That Mario team continues to be one of the more exciting teams at Nintendo, and Bowser's Fury just shows that it's like weird to think that you can still find interesting ways to make Mario jump. And I also think Bowser's Fury, when we use the term open world, like that's been so canonized by the Ubisoft application of like the big map that I like when I've used that terms, people push back on it. I was like, well, that's just because in your head, you've just, like Ubisoft and these objective markers are like what we mean by open world. What open world just means is like a big space. You can do whatever you want in that big space. And what Bowser's Fury does, it says, what if in the big space there are a bunch of small spaces? That seems like a simplistic concept, but what it does is like it just takes like a bunch of small, tiny maps for Mario to play around with and puts them in a big space so that the player can at any time kind of indulge in whatever they're interested in. It also allows the designers to create a dynamic map where every couple of minutes Bowser butts in and like there are Bowser specific objectives you can do. And so you're just constantly, there's always something for the player to be doing, where like even if you fall off, you're doing an objective that's like scaling a tower. Well, if you fall off, well, at the bottom there's another objective for you to do. So you don't have to scale that tower. There's not a you don't die from falling. The game just knows, hey, we've just planned that you were gonna fall, and here's something else for you to do down here. And that's like a really exciting way to play the game. Is just the ability to have always something to do. And each of them are just really exciting and different. So yeah, I definitely recommend people check out some Bowser's Fury.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Rob, I know you've been getting into some stuff. What do you want to shout out? What do you want to talk about? My list of things for you is like a labyrinth.
Yeah. Gosh. So I guess probably what I've been putting the most time into is just a city builder set in like the Fertile Crescent in like early history or prehistory called Nebuchadnezzar. And there's different flavors of city builder. This is definitely one of your optimization puzzle type city builders. And so the entire thing is about managing two things, really. Inputs and outputs of production buildings and pathing around various critical like delivery services. And so
classic prehistory shit.
Yeah, like you had to really think about like where is a person with a wheelbarrow going to take these delicious loaves of bread that we've invented because we're civilization now. Yeah. So it's the funny thing, it's been a long time since I played a game like this. I think the formative games like this were like Caesar 3 back in the day, where it's just entirely about, unlike in, for instance, like a Sim City or something where a building has kind of an effects radius and you just sort of lay things out and they just kind of work. This is all very much about, have I balanced my bakeries with my wheat farms? Are the bakeries getting the bread to the markets so that the markets can give the bread to the people so that the people who live in the houses can be fed? And as you satisfy the various needs of the people in these houses, the houses level up and become more dense. And so there's a lot of incentive to create like, hey, do you like dense urbanism? This game is all about that because it's like your shitty sprawl housing. Nobody can live in that. But like, that's going to be like 30 people who can work in your city. But if you get it up to like even the standard level, that's like that block of housing now has like 100 people in it. And that's like a lot of labor that can sort of power up more advanced buildings. But it also means that the complexity escalates very, very quickly. And if you have a problem where like, you do not like looking at suboptimal things operating poorly, this game can drive you very much into your worst tendencies. Sure. Where you're like, full stop, everybody. I know I'm like this close to getting the mission objective done. I cannot abide the backlog of milk deliveries we've got at the warehouse. Everybody stop. We got to clear cut this entire neighborhood. We got to put in some more delivery facilities here. And because your city evolves as it densifies, these needs will change. Like suddenly you're like, wait, why are people starving in these houses? It's because the entire delivery system was set up to serve half as many people who live there now. Right. And so now you're like, okay, so now I need to get more like bread into that neighborhood, more milk and more pottery. But you don't have that stuff in the neighborhood anymore because you've already outstripped the capacity. So it's either got to come from somewhere else or the neighborhood has to be sort of like redesigned to support a higher population. And the radius stuff is very unforgiving. Like a warehouse collects stuff as a depot and then sends it out to like markets and such. The radiuses are very small. The radii are very small. And so like you don't get very long before you have to worry about, oh shit, nobody can reach these houses. Oh shit, this warehouse can't actually pull anything from this farm. And so you have a city that starts malfunctioning very, very quickly. But when you do get all this stuff figured out, it's enormously satisfying to see, like, you see stuff come into the warehouse. You see delivery people take the raw materials right out to the production buildings, and like the warehouse is mostly clear. Like it goes up to capacity for like a split second, and then it goes whooshing back out, and you're like a perfectly tuned machine. You've done it again. And it feels good, but the problem is it doesn't take very long before you just feel like I don't know what's the way to put this. It's like it's just gone. You know how like when something's really neatly packaged, something arrives in the packaging, and once you unpack it, it can never be packed up again. Like a board game you get for the first time, and like you unpack the board game, and you're like, how does this go back into the box? And the answer is nobody knows. Whoever produced it the first place knows. You will never get that back. That's kind of how playing this game feels, where like you get a little bit into the game and you're like, oh, I need to revise this. I need to sort of adjust this. And you can't, because everything you do starts throwing things off worse. So it's psychological torture, but also kind of fun. And I'm not sure where I'm going to come down.
It actually sounds like you're already positive on it. It's just that the thing that it does might be negative to you in terms of bringing you to your worst, most obsessive play style. But like, sometimes it's good to give over to that feeling and just hyper obsess over stuff that doesn't actually matter that much instead of stuff that does, you know?
Yeah, I'm really upset about the $20 you forced out of my pocket during this conversation, Rob. But I'll forgive you in time. It is just like you were describing Gita Jackson food when you were talking about how you need to continually upscale your production and supply chains while the rest of the population scales with it, which is always something that I spend, a lot of the time in my games of Crusader Kings, an entire play session will be about designing a fortress and then also planning for the future in terms of population scaling, because it's, you have to actually make enough food for everybody or else you'll be fucked. If like one part of that supply chain breaks down, you're fucked. This is why I was so concerned in February of last year about the coronavirus.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you for that update on that city builder.
Real quick.
Yeah, please.
One board game that's done it right. The Bloodborne board game, the base game, you open that up, there's a tray in the bottom. Everything has a spot. Everything has a place. It's beautiful. I put that thing away.
Well, Cado, that's very easy if they're going to send you 70 fucking boxes.
No. It's one box. The one box. The base game. I haven't opened any of the other ones. Jesus Christ. But the base game, the single base game that you can play on, you can have that, and that can be the whole game for you. It's really well organized. Only board game I feel like I could put away.
We love the fitted trays.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I need to shout out the game that I think I've been most impressed with and most compelled by during this little break that we've taken. Not a break, but we didn't record an episode last week, so that's something. Which is AI Dungeon, a game that first hit like blog. People start blogging about it in late 2019, but now I've revisited it and it is shockingly cool. It's improved so much since then. Let me explain what it is. Actually, here, I'm going to hit new game. I'm going to hit worlds.
All right.
Actually, I'm going to hit prompts. Do we want to do fantasy, mystery, apocalyptic, zombies, cyberpunk? Which one of those do you want to do? Mystery, love it. Are you a patient, a detective, a spy, or a doctor?
Spy.
Boom. What's our name?
Ronald.
I'm going to write, what did you say? Ronald?
Rob.
Robald, got it. R-O-B-A-L-D, Robald, generating story. So this is an AI. This is it's not an AI based, because when you say the word AI, that means something, but it is AI based in a sense. It is it is a limited AI that has been trained on a bunch of books. When I say a bunch of, I mean like gigabytes worth of text to understand, not to understand language, but to recognize and be able to put out language in ways that we will recognize as being correct and understandable. It's also pulling from texts like Choose Your Own Adventure websites that it's pulled certain like basic ideas from, but it is basically a thing that generates a story that then you can respond to, like it's an old school text adventure game, but then will generate new responses. So you are Robold, a spy living in Chicago. You have a concealed pistol and a syringe of poison. You listen to the Russian diplomats and hear them discussing a new weapon, a machine that can destroy a whole army. You're told it's being tested in the desert and you'll be shipped through Chicago on its way to Washington. You're handed a communique. Someone in the French diplomatic service wants to meet with you. His name is Dudar de Legris, and he works on the railways. You meet him the next day. And now we have a prompt. We can do something. We can say something. We can write just loose story. We can say, like, the meeting went well, and then we went to Chicago or whatever. But for now, I'm going to just type into this thing. I'm going to say, Monsieur de Legris, good to meet you. I'm going to hit enter and see what it says back to me. And this is the game of AI Dungeon. It is shockingly, like I said, compelling, because it's the sort of thing where you're going to get a result that surprises you, and maybe it's bad. Maybe the AI doesn't function right, but then you just hit retry and it generates something new. And so for instance here, the first response I got here was like not good because it was clearly not about the stuff that was happening. It was like, oh yeah, the Germans. Like, well, the Germans haven't shown up. Let's hit retry. But now it says, Delegray, you say in broken down Back Valley French, which you've been practicing for years. I want to know about one of the trains that goes through here. He frowns. You're sure you should be asking me about this? And from here, we can do things like, I'm going to type do, I'm going to say, remember the code phrase. And I'm going to type this and hit enter. And my suspicion is the AI will then write for me a code phrase which my character remembers, except the game doesn't know what a code phrase is. It just knows that in other books, the word code phrase has shown up next to things, often in quotation marks or whatever. And so here's what it does. My character says, I have no alternative. I'm sorry to make trouble for you. You wait. He stares at you as if trying to read your intentions. At last he smiles. Ah, the train from the west. Yes, you say. I want to know what time it's scheduled to arrive. It should be in about 3 hours, he replies. And so it doesn't, the thing that's so weird about this thing is it doesn't know the words it's saying. It doesn't understand them, but it's still able to put together things that feel like they have something like meaning making happening there. I was playing a game with some friends. There's a multiplayer mode in this where you all play characters that have names, and we were doing like a fantasy heist. And at one point we had one of the characters pulled out a book to read about how to do a heist. And it says, the following rules are written in the language of the dragons, ancient Thyrish. They have been translated for your convenience. Blaskar, who is one of the characters, looks around and begins to recite them. Rule 1, never let a friend get arrested. Rule 2, always have a scapegoat. Rule 3, always have an exit strategy. Rule 4, never ever be greedy. Rule 5, make sure you're invisible. Rule 6, always enter from the top. Rule 7, never pick a lock you can't break open. Rule 8, make sure you're not seen. Rule 9, always be prepared to run or fight. And Rule 10, the best heist is one that doesn't happen. And it's like,
whoa,
right? It knew to put the fucking stinger on the end. It put the fucking weird one at the very last one that's like, okay, that's the thinker. What do we mean by that? And then from there, we played this adventure in which we like snuck down, and one of our players like distracted the guards by putting on a disguise and pretending to be a captain who was coming to distract the guards. And the rest of us had an adventure inside about trying to disarm magical like explosive traps and stuff. And it is such a strange mode of play. But it's like instead of being given a single prompt in like for writing fan fiction or something, or writing fiction for that matter, you get these prompts over and over again. And half of the joy is seeing the weirdness of it all, and half of the joy is seeing it just magically completely work. I'm going to give one more example here, and then I'm going to move on because I know this is like the strangest thing in the world. Let me, here we go. So there's another one I did in which two of my friends, KB and Jack DeKeat, Jack from Friends of the Table, did a stream of this game in which they were, God, what's even the gist of it? They were in like a weird Christmas village world. Yeah. And something passed by really quick that they moved on from, which is the mayor of the town they were in was called Mayor Oinky Mayor. And they read some information about some other characters on like fake Wikipedia. You could just ask this thing like, okay, read the Wikipedia article for so-and-so, and it'll generate a fake Wikipedia article more or less to read from.
Yeah.
And in this case, I was playing with someone and we were like, I want to know more about this Oinky Mayor motherfucker. Generate some shit about him. And long story short, we ended up meeting with him in his office and dealing with a bunch of weird bullshit. But along the way, we found this conspiracy in which he was stealing money to build a statue of himself in town. So corrupt, this mayor. What classic corrupt leader shit. I'm going to steal money from the sewer people to build a statue of myself. And so to stop it, we of course did the most democratic thing. We created an online poll, and we said, all right, generate us 4 statue options. You make an online poll on the town website to see what the people would like a statue of. There were 4 options. That's what we typed into the AI. And so it says, we read back the list of options. There are 4 options for the future statue of the mayor. You look them over and realize there are pros and cons of each. The first is a statue of the mayor as you know him. He's a very muscular man wearing a toga and holding a laurel wreath. The statue would likely be in the town square, which would serve as a reminder to the public of what he looked like. Then we say, okay, you read the second option. The second option is a statue of the mayor as he really is. He's an old man dressed in a robe and holding a walking stick. This statue would be in the alley behind his house. You're not sure if the people would find this appealing, but it would show the world the real man. All right, we'll read the third option. The third option is a statue of the mayor as another aspect of him. He's a skater boy, wearing a long coat and fashionable glasses. You don't find this option appealing at all. You're serious about the whole legacy thing you have going on here, it says. I don't know what that means, but it said it. And so finally we're like, okay, let's get a 4th option that's like not of the mayor if we can help it. So we typed, you read the 4th option, which was not a statue of the mayor, but instead something more abstract. And it replied, the fourth option is a statue of the man's heart, a huge red heart in the middle of the city. You find this idea really appealing. The leading candidate is the first option, which receives a lot of support from the mayor. And it's like, okay, where did you pull this shit from? Because there is not, that list of stuff doesn't exist out there. There is not a list that's like these 3 goofy statues of the mayor and then a human heart. And there is something about it that is so fascinating to see work. And I think part of it is that it's so unfinished still. But the machine it's like having a machine that makes cupcakes, but it doesn't know what a cupcake is. It just knows the ingredients of a cupcake. And so they come out in these strange shapes. You're like, every once in a while, you get a fucking killer cupcake. But other times you get desserts that have not been invented yet because no human would have decided to put those things in alignment in that way. As a writer, it's terrifying.
I just generated a story while you were talking, and It really is incredible, the hostility this version is showing to me. I'm Gita, detective living in Chicago. I did a mystery story. I'm a detective. My name's Gita. So the first thing, I'm surrounded by a dozen or so bad guys, all of them wielding automatic weapons.
Oh my God.
Wow.
The first thing I said is like, is this a party, fellas? And then what I got from this thing was, you say something stupid, like, is this a party? The men begin laughing and opening fire.
Wow. Now, if you hit retry, you'll get a different response. And a big part of it, and also you can edit the responses, right? So like you can go in and be like, okay, this is most of the way right, but let me just like tweak it, and that will then generate something new after that. And that's already super fascinating. On top of that, it's so interesting to see what it's pulling from and how it shapes the narrative. There was a fantasy story we did once that had a character in it who was introduced as like a terrible, mean sorceress to the degree that she like killed everybody. Like she turned one of our main characters into some sort of werebeast and then had him kill his friend and then die from werebeast disease, basically. And at that point, this character is just like rude, mean, powerful, evil sorceress, and she becomes the lead character. But within like 50 new messages, 50 new turns of the game, she started talking and acting like a YA protagonist because the game defaults into the sort of like content that it's been fed into. And so if there is a lone female protagonist at that point, she's not going to be written by the AI as if she were this cruel sorceress. She takes on the attitudes and the sort of like coyness of like a YA protagonist. And you can do things to change that. You can go in and say like, hey, this character has these traits, basically. You can make it remember certain things. And if you do that, it kind of can keep on its toes. But this is the thing that's just like, if I had played this last year, it would have been a thing that I yelled about all year, because I think that it is, it's such a strange thing, and it comes out of a weird place. Like it feels like something that is the most like garage, invented thing, but I think it's actually tied to some big corporate publisher that does other shit and has thankfully given these people, like not a game publisher, but like a big company, and thankfully it's given the people who do this a lot of leeway to build this weird AI system that lets you tell stories, and I think it's very cool. So shout out.
I think
to
I'm
Dungeon.
going to so recently, Jessica, sometimes when I'm putting her to bed, be like, "Can you tell me a story?"
Yeah,
and I get like legitimately stressed out. Yeah. Like, I just I've told similar stories. My brain's not built for stuff like that. I was like, I can read you a story, Jessica. Like, I'll do the voices. We'll go on a journey. But like, she asked her recently. I was like, I started getting like actual anxiety. I was like, I don't fucking know, Jessica. What story do you want me to tell you? And she's like, tell me about a story about a princess. And I get like 2 lines in and be like, I don't know what happens next in this story, Jessica. I don't. Like, I really don't know what happens next. So I'm thinking like, I'll just, you know what? I saw it's an app.
Yeah.
And I'll just like, Jessica, what's the prompt? Tell me what you want this story to be about. And I will feed it into this AI, and this will become our nightly story.
Actually incredibly cute. You should go into there's like a light fantasy world. There's like there's a Christmas world called Winter Bloom where there's a bunch of fucking cool gnomes and shit. Love it. Fantastic.
We'll see what happens. I give her prompts, and then she can. I'll try and do that this week, and I'll revisit what story.
Just, you make sure that the safe for work filter is on strict mode, Patrick. All right. Any other things people? I guess what's probably worth saying. Rob, you touched some Valheim also, right? Mm-hmm. Valheim is like the thing right now. Valheim has blown up. I think it's probably the most popular game on Steam still, if I had to guess.
Just surpassed like 500K concurrents, like blowing past like Terraria. Obviously at one point an extremely popular game before it became known for getting his designers banned from like a Google YouTube account.
That did happen, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Still don't know what quite happened there. I feel like there's
a story.
Missing information. Yeah. I'm not trying to throw shade at the developers of Terraria. I just feel like something else was going on there than just because they never Google never put out like we're sorry, we're working with it. There's just nothing. No. Just nothing.
Like, all right, peace.
Corporate PR always puts out like the Weasley word, thing. Anyway. Yeah, Valheim is extremely popular. Maybe by 5 people.
Is that true? Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. I'm at a place with it where I'm like recognizing the things it's doing right, but it does not have that compelling pull on me that it's gotten for my friends. And that's probably on me for not playing with my friends. But I'm just like not in that mode right now, and that makes it tough. Survival game. Rob, you were nodding when I said all that. Is that similar to where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, I get why people like these games, but they've never done it for me. Like, so it's having said all that I just said about Nebuchadnezzar, where I'm like, I love managing the inputs and outputs and like plotting my little construction. The survival game in this vein does nothing for me, where I'm like, I can't wait to get a bunch of basic goods and then craft them into intermediate goods that I can then use to craft into advanced goods. Mm-hmm. And I want to do that forever. It just doesn't like, it is a very well made one of those. It is a very pretty looking game. It sort of calls to mind like voxel based games that I loved once upon a time. it has a structure, which is very nice. A lot of games in this vein don't, where like you're kind of set in here, and it's like, oh, you need there are boss monsters that.
You get a screenshot of that real quick.
And he just comes back.
Yeah.
It's a great Rob face.
It's a great Rob face.
What do you think he's talking about? So he was talking about the structure.
Bosses. He's going to talk about like objectives. There's objectives in this.
But then what's his hang up? Like where does he run into? Where does he no longer
blank? It's just not.
I'm just wondering where what's the Rob thing? Like if we played it with him, maybe he would get into it, but like he doesn't want to build the cabin. Can't figure out which cabin to build?
Maybe he doesn't like the building structure. Maybe it's like too much. Maybe the steps along the way just aren't interesting enough. You know what I mean? Where it's like, yeah, you have objectives, but the way you get to them is the same as every one of these games.
Yeah, and then you would also say, well, it's early access, like that can change.
That might be more you or me. I think we give ourselves that little backdoor.
We do more the caveat of like, maybe we'll check back into it and never check back in. That's never do it.
Yeah. I want to play this game more. I just need to commit to actually doing it with friends so that I'll have a good time instead of just...
I've enjoyed watching what people build in it. Like I'm realistic. I'll never play this game, and I'm okay with that. But I like watching like what people have gotten into. Into it. Like people have built some fun little communities.
There goes Rob.
He's gone.
It looks like we're not going to get Rob back. The internet just died up there apparently. Anyway, I think we did a good job approximating what Rob said. I echo you,
Rob, write in and let us know. Did we accurately predict your thoughts and caveats? That's gaming at Fight.
There's stuff here that I think is really fucking cool. I think Rob's back. Rob?
Hello?
Yo.
Hello?
Hi, you made it. Rob lives. Hashtag Rob lives.
Hashtag Rob lives.
Did your recording continue? It was just the internet?
Yeah, of course.
Welcome back.
Why don't I believe you?
We made some guesses about what you were going to say, and now we can just hear what you're going to say directly. Tell us what you're going to say.
Really, I think we should just leave that as canon.
Leave it in. Yeah, don't worry. We got you covered, basically, Rob.
Yeah, don't Rob. We finished the discourse
about it, basically. I think the zones look nice, and I want to play with some friends to see if that is like the secret juice I need to really end up liking Valheim versus just kind of like recognizing that things like, hey, you don't need to repair your tool. You're repairing your tools is free is like, yeah, awesome. I'm thrilled about that. When I upgrade my tools now, I don't have to worry about going to get the super supplies to repair them back to that level or whatever. Great. Love it. But I definitely, I just need that. I think I need to force myself to do the social component of it, which can be hard because being social is difficult. I'm very much in hibernation mode right now, and that's not the same as like having goofy fun with my friends as Vikings. That's the opposite. So we'll see.
This is becoming a little burrito in the blankets in your bed.
That's the mode I'm in right now, for real.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Anyway, that's Valheim. I will try to check back in with it because it seems to be such a thing that like one of us should be playing Valheim in a bigger way.
That's always the thing that I find fascinating is like it's like trying to nail down like, okay, at what point did the culture decide? Okay, all right, Valheim. And is it because of something Valheim did? Is it because like it reaches a like a certain number of streamers are playing it, thus in order to be like featured properly on Twitch, you need to get in on Valheim, which then like feeds in. Like I mean, like I'm just so curious because this happens all the time, and there are like a million reasons why a game like
me? That's not good.
Hi, Rob. We can hear you still.
Yeah.
Hello?
Is this what Rob does when I'm like trying to make a point, and then he's just like under his breath, like muted, being like,
I've never heard you make one. No, I got booted out of the Discord call on my phone because my internet came back and it just logged me in, but then logged me out of the other session.
Anyway, you're here. We're good. I think we summarized what we expected you to say. And also, I guess Cado has the recording from Rob, right? So
yeah,
Rob's typing.
Yeah, make sure and mix that up real good.
I'll figure something out. Jesus.
All right, we should just. We're cursed now. We're losing. We don't have Rob anymore.
I think maybe we need to. I think we need to call
it.
it.
We just need to call it.
You have me.
No, it's done, Rob. We've lost you. We've lost us.
Wow.
We're all lost. We're all lost out here.
Everything's lost, according to Austin. I mean, take a look at the world. How wrong is that?
Take a look at the world. You know, it's almost a year since we've been locked up, right?
Oh my God.
Since we've been in here. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this podcast?
Being a landlord's not a real job. That's all I have to say. It's just not a real job.
What is?
Being a landlord. It's just not a real job.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Also, yeah, Gita is having some fucking situations with construction in the house.
Contractors full on have a conversation in the basement apartment of my house where I can hear literally every single word.
God.
Well, it's not an apartment yet.
Yeah.
But they hope with enough jackhammering.
Yeah.
Patrick wishes he had a landlord. That's how.
I would say a home consultant. I want someone to talk about, the cracks in the cement in the back and the stairs that need repair. What do I do? What are my options?
I do have two quick things on emails, really quick. This first one comes in from Cody, and we need to read this. Gaming at vice.com is the address. That's correct, right?
He says with
it's been so
confidence.
long. Hi all, Patrick, please explain the Snyder Cut 4:3 to us. Explain why it's a square, Patrick.
Patrick doesn't know.
Well, Zack Snyder himself said it's basically a big square, and so I rest my case.
Also, Cado, that was so dismissive. You were like, Patrick doesn't know. I've never heard you with that tone.
Wow. Cado,
are you just like a Snyder Cut defender? Cado, are you secretly a hashtag Snyder Cut person?
I've never seen a single DC. Wait, that's not true. I haven't seen anything, a single DC movie since, what was it, Rise? The last Batman
Dark Knight
from
Rises.
Nolan. Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I did bong rips and watched Batman v Superman with my friend Donald, but that was the last time that we watched anything DC. Yeah, Wonder Woman. We
it looks like a big
bad.
square, and it doesn't look good. It looks like he's using too much of the square.
Yes.
So
I think it's profoundly funny that a cut of this movie, whatever, good for him to finish it. It's fine. He went through a real tragedy, whatever you think about the culture that developed around him. That he encouraged, so but it was the Snyder Cut came out of COVID. It was put into production during COVID. It was approved during COVID, and the allure of the IMAX full frame, it will now be released in COVID, in which nobody is going to see this in IMAX, and so it would just look kind of awkward, due to the commitment of the IMAX cut. It's just funny and goofy, and it looks kind of like a square. And I remain committed to the square discourse around the Snyder Cut.
So Folding Ideas on YouTube has a very long video about what technically why saying the Snyder Cut was something that existed is both is like a Schrodinger's cat situation, and that every movie has a 3 to 4 hour cut of just
the assembly cut, right?
Of just you know what we're talking about.
It's no editing. Yeah. It's literally just we took a version of the dailies and put it together according to the script, but without any sort of the creative process of editing.
We're just about to see the most maximalist, overwrought, overthought piece of cinema that could possibly exist. It reminds me a lot, actually, of this thing we used to do PowerPoint parties, me and my friend. You know that movie, me and my boyfriend and our other friends. That movie, that The Deer Hunter, that won the Academy Award for its very ahistorical and wildly racist portrayal of the Vietnam War. The follow-up to that film was hugely expensive and took multiple years to produce, and the cast and crew just ended up basically moving to a town and just living there and shooting random shit every day. Heaven's Gate is the name of this movie, and it really feels like this same approach where they're well, he's a visionary, so let's just give him everything he literally wants. Sometimes that shit is mess. Sometimes you need an editor.
It's true. That's what movies are.
I'm handing over 3,000 words of typing to Rob Zachney. It's fix it.
I just wanted, my second thing is not actually reading one of these things because there's too many of them. And all of them are unsurprisingly super long, but I wanted to thank everyone who sent me Mass Effect remaster romance questions. I've read them all, and everyone has good opinions, especially the people who tell me they like the Mako like me. I would say that the majority of the people who wrote in Sorry, what's up, Cado?
The Mako is just in Final Fantasy VII? It's just the thing you get early?
What?
I'm playing the original Final Fantasy VII, and you get a vehicle in the early part of that game where I'm at that is just the Mako. It is just the Mako. Come on! It's got 6 wheels. It's got the weird shape. It's a Mako.
I guess I see it.
It's the only Mako in that game because the rest of it's Mako.
It's Mako. Yeah, the rest of it's Mako. Yeah. I can kind of see it. It would be very funny if in Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 they just put the Mako in.
That'd be great.
Well, they were putting all sorts of Mass Effect stuff into was it the Lightning Return, like the Lightning ones?
Did they
Final
have
Fantasy, whatever? What? Yeah, they put N7 shit into there.
Oh my god,
there were a bunch of like collabs.
That's very funny. Anyway, so thank you all for sending that in, for sending those in. They're incredibly good answers. I was gonna say the biggest thing actually that came through from most of them, if I could like summarize what I read, it's like, hey, I've changed a lot. In some cases, it's like, I'm gay now and would want to play a gay, shepherd, or I'm out now to myself even. Or it's like, hey, I would love to play as a woman now. But that would mean not getting to romance the character who I want to romance, because despite being super queer coded, in fact, despite being canonically bi, like you can't date Jack as a woman in those games. And so that ends up being a tricky thing. And so like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see people's real time responses to that series if they replay them when that remaster hits. Because
I guess I forgot that's one way to force yourself into a corner is to I played as male shepherd. Like if I flip that around, then there are just design choices that will change
your relationship choices throughout that whole series. Yeah, totally. For one, you could date Garrus, who is great and is one of the best characters in a BioWare game ever, just because he's cool as shit.
Just want to be comforted.
Yeah, exactly.
Hug me.
Please hug me, Garrus, with your like weird bird lizard scale face. I'm down. Let's go. All right. I think that's going to do it for us this week.
Cado's just in here pasting images, trying to bolster
it. Doesn't look like the Mako.
Look at it.
Doesn't.
It has 8 different fucking.
It just has wheels. It's got
an extra wheel.
It's got wheels. It's a Mako.
Yeah, Cado.
It's got wheels. It's a Mako.
It's a Mako. Cado, you're off on this one, homie.
God
I love
damn
you.
it.
This is not. It's not. It
just has one extra wheel and some rockets on the butt.
2 extra wheels. It had 1 extra wheel. That would be a bad car. And yeah, it has rockets on the butt. That's a big difference.
Whatever. It's the same shape
Also,
on
like,
the front and the mid. It's got the little.
It's not the same shape on the front. It's a different shape on the front.
It's a little pointier, I
narrows.
guess. Cut off its nose.
Narrows.
Yeah. God damn it, it's a Mako.
You would never say, if you saw these 2 things as pants, you would never like, those are the same pair of pants. Like, no, one of them narrows to a point at the bottom. That's weird. These just narrow to a little.
Well, this is just the Mark 1 or whatever, right? Before they sanded off some of the weird extra bits, they simplified, and that's how you got the Mako.
Oh, okay. That's the difference between Mako and Mako. I see. All right. As always, you can send your questions to gaming@vice.com. Use the subject question. Otherwise, it will get lost in the huge mess of other stuff that comes into this, like this King's Bounty 2 trailer. What year is it? What? Isn't King's Bounty 2 from forever ago? Or
I had this exact reaction. The answer is no. They made 1 million expansions, but they never made a King's Bounty 2.
Oh, interesting.
I also remember King's Bounty, the legend, was different than King's Bounty. And
that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Great.
Austin,
anyway, that's what's in our email. Yeah.
I have some really breaking important Black person news for you, though.
Thank you. Please.
They freed Bobby Shmurda.
Oh, word?
Yeah, he's out of jail.
Oh, I'm excited for that next mixtape. Let's go. Damn. Can we just put Hot Nigga at the end of this? We can't. He'll sue us. We can't do that.
He'll come for us with a gun because that's what he's known to do.
Yeah. What if instead of the Bowen music at the beginning of this podcast, we just put the like air raid sirens from the beginning of Hot Nigga? That would be
that song is still fire.
It's still fire. I've always said if I ever have to do a real life like WWE entrance, that's my end. That has to be that entrance music.
Absolutely.
It's just too powerful. Damn. Free Shmurda. Now all they have to do is give us free school and free healthcare, and then my trio of 3 things I wanted to be free will be complete.
Yes.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Rob, where can people find you?
At Rob Zachney.
Gita.
At XOXO Gossip Gita.
Cado.
At A_Cado_appears.
And Patrick.
At Patrick Klopik.
Thank you to Bowen for letting us use a track, Miss You, off the EP Pale Machine. I'm laughing because we can't use a Bobby Shmurda track. Cannot. Find out more about Bowen at waypoint.zone/BOEN. You can follow everything we do, twitter.com/waypoint. waypoint.vice.com. We'll have another Reset Duo coming later this week. Look forward to that. I forget what these episodes are. The last double was really good, though. The last one, if you're skipping these because you're like, I just want to hear the people I know from Waypoint, this past Fridays was me, Gita, and Dexter for one of them, and me, Patrick, and Dexter for the other. Both of those conversations I think were really good. So, go listen to those. Those are really good. We'll be back next week, also afterwards, for just a regular episode. So look forward to that. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home. Peace. All right.
367.
366. I forget. Cado.
What? 367.
376.
376.
376. I was like,
go.
that doesn't feel right. Yeah.
My internet was out just long enough to fuck up that entire segment, though. That's the
No,
thing.
it was
Came
fine.
back right away.
No,
very funny
Rob, we
in a
saved
way.
it. Don't. You're good. You're
Yes.
good. There will be some version of this where Cado, I don't know, he'll figure out some magic. But
Yeah.
we speculate. We had your discourse for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a good bit that I will enjoy.
We roast ourselves a little bit too, so don't worry.
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, I think we actually were meaner to ourselves than we were to your opinions.
Now that
Yeah,
we
totally.
can look at this image of Montague Kane from Batman next
Oh,
to this image of Rob.
It's incredible. That's Rob's acting.
That's Rob.
to me.
Except we can tell this guy is evil because in the show he's disrespectfully horny to Zatanna, and I know that Rob would not be
Rob
like that.
would never be like that.
No. You'd want to talk to
Just
Zatanna about how she
respectfully
does all her
horny.
tricks.
Yeah. my admiration for Zatanna is pure.
Of course.
I forget, she's like an ex of Batman's, right?
Yeah. In the
That feels totally
cartoon-
fucked up because, she makes
Like-
sense for Dick Grayson to know.
Yeah, so in the cartoon they established that Batman trained under her dad as John Smith, and he was like, "Okay, John Smith, I'll let you hang." And she had a little sister-esque crush on him, and
I
he
see.
was trying to get with him, but he didn't take it seriously because he was trying to avenge his parents by eradicating all crime by
That
dressing
sounds
like
like
a
him.
bat. Yeah.
Always the Batman
Sure.
story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just ships passing in the night, one of them going toward either a career in supervillainy or regular life, and the other going to a quest for vengeance.
Yeah. In the show, though, a lot of the motivations for the supervillains becoming villains, 2 so far, it's just losing their job. And I just feel like that feels very true to life to me. If I lost my job, I would become the Riddler,
I would-
aka just an annoying guy that's very pedantic.
The Clock King is definitely a dude who got laid off, right? And
He was late to work and got laid off.
This is going to make me into the Clock King, I say, as I fill a cardboard box with my shit from my office.
this is the thing where a lot of times, Batman, you can just stand aside and let this person settle their score, and then they'll be
Done.
gone. You will
That's it.
never deal with
This
them
is the
again.
one thing they're doing. This is basically a crime of super passion.
If you
You know?
just let the Scarecrow harass Gotham State University, they probably deserve it.
It'll be done.
It's fine.
Just
In one
let-
episode, he's just
Let Clayface kill Roland Daggett, and then let's see.
No one
Yeah.
cares about Roland Daggett. Fuck Roland Daggett.
He's bad.
It's fine.
in one episode we watched recently, the Scarecrow is just doing petty, he's just doing straight fraud. He's using
I
the
love
scare
Scarecrow
toxins
so much.
to just
That's
so
so
scare famous athletes who are favored to win in betting so that they lose. And then he takes it's uncut gems, except he has fear toxin.
Incredible.
Perfect.
All right.
I highly recommend this. Anyway, I'm
gonna go eat
leaving
lunch.
now.
All right.
Bye.
Later, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Y'all.
Anyway, well, he's typing.
He's typing. I hope he didn't crash.
Yeah, his internet crashed.
No good.
We'll just finish out.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Tell him to not sweat it.
Great. I just want to make this easy for you, Cado. Great. So if it's even easier, that'll be even better. Yeah.
Okay. We ready to do a clap?
Yeah, let me go time that is.
Oh my God. Time
It's been a minute.
Clap. Clap.
Are we all there?
Yes.
Oh, wait. No, we're not.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we are.
Let's do. Let's just do 40. All right.